The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is condemning the Trump administration's mass deportations of immigrants and its plan for more detention megacenters.
Are those the internment camps?
A lot of people describe the conditions inside these detention centers as absolutely horrific, a nightmare, and there's so many stories.
Some that have been in there have said they were like concentration camps.
And they're building many more. The chair of the Catholic organization issued a statement over the weekend calling plans to open large new immigration detention centers, quote, deeply troubling, while also writing, quote, we implore the administration and Congress to lead with right reason, abandon this misuse of taxpayer funds, and instead pursue a more just approach to immigration enforcement that truly respects human dignity, the sanctity of families, and religious liberty.
You know, and there's so many people that are, I will say where I am, which is I've always said on this show, I've always said when I was in Congress, that we need a strong southern border. That we have to, for the sake of equity, it's important that somebody that's trying to get here from Pakistan or Switzerland or Morocco has the same opportunity as somebody who just crosses the border illegally, right? So I've always believed that, and I still believe that. And we were critical of Joe Biden when the southern border was so porous. That said, like the Catholic bishops, like the majority of Americans, we understand that what's happening right now with ICE is just reprehensible. It's inhumane. It's un-American. You look at the polls. That's where most people are. That's where the Catholic bishops are. And the idea of these internment camps, I mean, we could compare them to the internment camps for the Japanese Americans. I think that the conditions may be worse. We'll need to get a historian on right now for what's happening in a lot of the internment camps right now with children than maybe even with Japanese American internment camps. Like, again, we need to explore that. So maybe even calling them internment camps may actually be a bit too kind. But Mika, this is deplorable. It's un-American. And I'm glad the Catholic bishops, at least, are speaking out when I must say a lot of people in my church are not.
Yeah, a lot of Democratic lawmakers are trying to sound the alarm because they are building more and they're sprawling. One in New Hampshire, I mean, towns are trying to fight back. Some are getting overruled. Well, and we'll continue to cover this.
Roger Wicker, a Republican from Mississippi, a very conservative guy, I know, says we don't want your internment camps in Mississippi.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a federal judge in West Virginia issued a scathing ruling against ICE last week, finding that agents violated the constitutional rights of an immigrant they arrested last month. The judge wrote that the arrest of 21-year-old Salvadoran immigrant was, quote, indistinguishable from lawbreakers and amounted to, quote, the elimination of constitutional accountability itself, invoking historical parallels to authoritarian regimes and the Ku Klux Klan. He added, quote, a regime of secret policing has no place in our society. The 21-year-old immigrant had a valid work permit when he was seized last month by a group of masked ICE agents who did not have badges and were in an unmarked Ford Explorer without a license plate. The judge ordered the 21-year-old's release, ruling that ICE's conduct violated due process protections and that the government failed to justify the use of masked agents in a routine civil immigration arrest.
And let's bring right now a member of the Homeland Security Committee, Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona. He's a Marine combat veteran of the war in Iraq. Senator, I can say this, and I can say this knowing that the overwhelming majority of Americans agree with me, agree with Mika, probably agree with you, that America, this is no place, as the judge said, federal judge said, for the secret police. This is no place for masked men in unmarked cars without license plates grabbing people off the streets. That seems to me to invite illegal and unlawful behavior from those who may not be members of the secret police for the federal government. But the fact that we have a secret police in the United States of America, I'm sorry, I've been around long enough to be able to say this freely. I agree with most Americans. That is un-American, isn't it?
Well, people sense this, too. People have gotten very used to professional law enforcement. You know your police officers. You see them without masks. You could clearly identify them. In Phoenix, they actually have their name tags on their vests, so you actually talk to them. We know there's certain levels of accountability. We could discuss, whether it's good enough or bad enough in some areas, but they're answering to somebody. What we've seen and what we saw in Minnesota, and if you saw some of the questions I did to ICE, the head of ICE and the head of Border Patrols, there seems to be a blank check that's given to these mostly men in these cities for them to run rampant, violate civil rights, try to drag anybody in that they can find, and hopefully find someone who's here in this country legally. As a matter of fact, there were several instances of police officers, sworn police officers, that were pulled over by ICE agents, by CBP in Minnesota because they were, black or Latino looking, and essentially having to prove that they were U.S. citizens. That is racial profiling. That's the kind of things that really ticks off Americans, especially Latino Americans, which you're seeing a big switch coming up in the votes because of these specific actions. But more importantly, too, which is as important, when you do this kind of stuff, when you do this type of overt power grab without any respect to communities, you're also putting law enforcement in danger themselves. Because at that point, the relationship breaks down, the trust breaks down, and that makes the whole system, a whole understanding of security, community security, just starts breaking down, and everyone becomes less and less safe.
And, Senator, of course, ICE and their tactics and the Department of Homeland Security at the heart of this partial government shutdown right now. So talk to us about where that stands. And Democrats who refuse to vote for this funding, what sort of negotiations or compromise, what sort of deal would be acceptable?
Look, we've been very clear. What has happened and what is happening is not acceptable. We can't just stand by and keep funding a system that killed 2 Americans in 2.5 weeks. As a matter of fact, we just discovered that ICE actually covered up the murder of another American in Texas last year. We see overt, racial discrimination that's happening, racial profiling. In Arizona, for example, they just bought a $70 million warehouse, did not even speak to the governor, did not speak to any of the local city council members, and the Republicans. They're setting up these internment camps. And yet when we asked for very simple things that would actually bring trust, security to our communities, they refuse because they just want the check. They just want a check without any other type of accountability. And they already have $175 billion. They have more money than the United States Marine Corps has. And yet they want more without any accountability that the American people are asking for. So what are we asking for? Simple things, right? Masks off, warrants only, stop racial profile. These are the things that Americans have come to understand and expect from professional law enforcement. And that's not what we're seeing from ICE right now.
Senator, let's turn now to the Vote Vets Town Hall that you're a part of, being held next month in San Antonio, Texas, certainly a major military community there, as well as a hotly contested Senate seat in that state. You, of course, served yourself. Talk to us about the importance of that event. What are some things you're trying to get across? What outreach you're trying to make happen?
Well, look, there is a very important kind of movement that's happening right now that I've seen, especially among Latino veterans. They, were a swing vote that actually voted for Donald Trump. And what I've seen talking to many of them is a deep distrust now, especially of this administration. It first started with all the VA cuts that happened as this administration came in. Just recently, they actually tried to change how people receive benefits if they got treatment and if they got better, putting veterans in a very impossible situation about whether they should take treatment versus getting support for some of the disabilities they're dealing with. And then, you may not see it all the time, but we certainly see it on Spanish TV, stories upon stories about Latino veterans being racially profiled, being arrested, right? Latino veterans and their parents being deported. These kinds of stories are really driving that community and moving them more and more towards the Democratic column. And of course, we can't also forget the fact that every day we hear another war that is coming. This is an administration that promised to go, to get us out of war, and all we're hearing every day is a new war coming. If you don't believe that in the Latino community, because we end up having an overrepresentation both in the military and in the combat arms, we don't pay attention to that. You'll see it when it comes for the upcoming election.
So did I understand you correctly? Did you say that DHS's budget is larger than the United States Marine Corps' budget?
That's right. Yes. I believe it's actually ICE's
that's
budget.
grotesque.
Yeah.
There's
no alignment.
That is grotesque.
Yeah.
That
Right.
is grotesque.
And that's right now.
I want to know,
Not
is
even what
there
they're asking
anything
for.
that Congress can do to claw some of that money back and actually give it to the United States Marines, give it to members of the Navy,
The VA.
give it to members of the Army, give it to the VA? That is grotesque. We have people who have served
And they're not
who
even
are
that good.
suffering, that are not getting health care that they were
Right.
promised. Can we not
Joe,
claw back
yeah.
that money from ICE and give it to our vets?
Joe, look, I think we can. We just have to wait for an election, unfortunately. But that money came from the cuts to Medicaid, right? That money came from those communities in rural Arizona that are probably going to have to close down some of their rural hospitals because they needed more money to buy up these big camps they're putting together, to hire these ICE agents that only have about 45 days of training and then are given a gun and sent into very stressful areas. There are people that are going and racially profiling people and rounding up Americans until they could prove their citizenship. That money came from kicking millions and millions of Americans off of Medicaid. It was the same bill. It was the same bill, the big, beautiful bill, whatever they want to call it. They cut Medicaid to expand ICE. And all that money is being used right now is to continue. They haven't even started yet with their full deportation policy. And what they've done so far is only terrorize communities and create distrust among Americans.
Well, terrorize communities, create distrust, and actually gun down Americans in the street.
Right.
And gut funding for Medicaid, gut funding for our grandparents, gut funding for children,
And they're building
gut
the
funding,
internment camps.
and again, not taking care of our vets. Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego. Well, go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, one more.
No, I mean, again, like if you talk about to our veterans, every day we feel that this administration is just taking any reason and finding any reason to cut more and more of our benefits, to disrespect the veterans that work at the VA. And just look at how many veterans were just fired at the beginning of this year that's just worked for the federal government. This is the most anti-veteran administration in the history of this country.
Yeah.
Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona. Thank you very much for coming on this morning.
And thank you so much for your service to America in uniform. We greatly appreciate it, sir.
Good to have
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
All right.
You too.
Still ahead, we'll be joined by the attorney who argued the
I really, I'm sorry. I can't just let that go. Not only are they cutting health care, not only are they cutting health care for our grandparents, for our parents, for our children, and not in blue states, in red states disproportionately. Not only are they doing that, they've been firing veterans that have worked for the government, firing veterans to give $175 billion to a secret police that the overwhelming number of Americans oppose what they're doing, oppose them being secret police, oppose them being in masks, oppose them arresting Americans, gunning down Americans in the street. And this administration and this Republican Congress has given those secret police more money than the United States Marines? That is grotesque. And it's un-American. And if you don't think it is, man, I don't know who raised you. That is gross. We need to take care of our Marines. We need to take care of people in the Navy, in the Army, in the Air Force. We need to take care of our vets, not fire our vets like this administration has done throughout their entire term.
All right,
it's sick.
still